Alright. This isn't one of those haunted game stories. At no point are you gonna hear me claim something within the game spoke to me, reacted to my words, or forced me to punch myself repeatedly in the face. No. This isn't about a haunted game or a game doing something impossible, or even something it shouldn't have. This isn't about a glitch or a hidden satanic message, and at no time did I phone Nintendo headquarters only to have my questions answered with hushed whispers and anguished screams. This story is about a game feature I don't think anyone else has unlocked. That's it. No ghosts, no conspiracies, just a secret we were all supposed to find but never did. Something that changes an entire generation's childhood in the very instance of a multi-million billion dollar franchise. This is about what I assume to be a previously undiscovered alternate ending of Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. The story starts like this. In 1996, I received my first computer as a birthday gift. I'd been on the internet before, had used computers before, but it had always been in school or at a friend's house. This one was mine. All mine. I explored the crude, prehistoric web of the time with great interest. I pirated media like a madman. Music, games, anything. Yes, it's kind of funny to admit, but this is where I first discovered Super Mario World. I've never had a Super Nintendo as a kid, so it was all new to me. I downloaded tons of games, including the SNES emulator, but Mario World was my favorite. For over a decade, the same Mario World ROM was my time-wasting hobby. I played it over and over again, beating the game faster and faster, until I began to lazily explore the worlds with no particular purpose. Game Genie codes helped immensely. I could turn off the timer and relive a particularly entertaining map for an hour as I waited for a download or any number of boring events. In this manner, that I must have beaten and rebeaten the game thousands upon thousands of times. There was comfort in the obsessive compulsive behavior of this routine, but all of that was shattered when I saw the blind boo. The blind boo, as I referred to it, was hovering over the exit from the haunted sunken ship level later on in the game. I call it blind because it actually had no visible eyes. It was like someone had made a lazy ROM hack, but I knew from years upon years of experience that this was a normal game. The blind boo just hung there over the exit pipe, blocking it. I turned my back on it, but it didn't chase me. How could it? It couldn't even see me. Then I noticed something else out of sorts. There was a key and keyhole misplaced above the exit. Keys and keyholes are such are ways of ending a level in an alternate manner and discovering a secret area. Still, this didn't belong there, and I knew it. For a moment, I considered the fact that I actually broken a ROM file from overuse. After taking a screenshot specifically to show all of you Mario Bros fans out there, I picked up the key, opened the door, even though it wasn't a door, figuring out the game would seize up. No, figuring the game would seize up and I'd have to restart. Instead, it actually opened up a new path on the map selection screen. A whirlpool next to Bowser's already creepy head cave thing. I pressed the right arrow and moved onto the worrying drain. Oh god, no. This didn't really strike me as odd, because if you're familiar with the Super Mario World game, there's an area called Star Road that you may know has similar names, just stuff like Tuber and Awesome and all manner of dumb words and phrases. Most of the areas were called Vanilla Forest 1 and Donut Mountain 3 and all that. But there were maps with odd names like that. What did concern me, though, was Mario's expression. Surprise? Shock? Fear? I don't know. I entered the map. Oddly enough, the whirlpool in the middle of a lake began with the standard castle entry animation. Mario walked up to the castle door, looked up, and went in. I could tell it was underwater, though, because of the bubbles that periodically emerged from the sprite's mouth and floated to the top of the screen. And inside the castle, it started to look more and more like I was in fact experiencing a glitch. There was no room to jump, no room to do anything but run left and right. I must have gone right for 10 to 20 minutes just holding the B button and running along at full speed. After a while, I ran into one or four. Then the screen was full of them. They just kinda hung there doing nothing. They wouldn't chase me if I turned my back. As with the previous blind boo, if I made any noise, like Mario's jump sound, they would just kinda shudder a bit. Like they heard the sound of Mario's footsteps, movements, but couldn't do anything about it. Then something made me stop and turn the other way. I let the blind bleeding Bill chase me for a while when I was invincible, just to get a good look at the thing. I stopped and killed it with my invulnerable touch. Only when I saw a message that hadn't been there when I first passed through. I hate you. That kind of creeped me out. But on the other end, it was kind of interesting because it meant this was definitely a map that was supposed to exist. There was some sort of plot element here, something undiscovered. What did it mean? Who hated me? King Koopa seemed like the obvious answer. Or maybe just the ghost. When you're in a haunted castle that you found by way of a haunted ship, a bloody looking hate message isn't so unbelievable. I saw it again as I approached some giant boos. I was thankful that the blind boos ended at this point because the more I watched them shudder, the uneasier I felt, almost empathetic toward them, etc. The thankfulness ended when I turned my back on the giant boos, and this happened. Giant boos I hadn't seen before. They looked mad at being awakened, angry that you were invading their haunted houses across the Mario World island. This was different, and they looked griefful, demented. I could see right down their throats, which seemed odd, given the lack of detail their mouths usually displayed. And yes, of course, I'm gonna address that message you saw in the picture. Why won't you die? I don't know why. Am I supposed to? Who's asking? I let the giant boos touch me and they died like the bleeding bills, of which I had encountered too. Despite any attempt to scare the player, I knew that being invincible meant invincible no matter what they threw at me. After a while of running down this strange claustrophobic corridor with no more eventful happenings, I came to a room with a exit pipe. Taking the pipe downward, I came out the other end and dropped into a room full of water. The water made sense, this being a sunken castle beneath a whirlpool and all. I was rewarded for my troubles with a question mark block that released a mushroom for me. I could easily done this with a cheat code, but the thought had escaped me as I faced these new and strange sights. The first creatures I encountered in the underwater portion of the castle were flumps. Unless you're living under a rock since the mid-80s, you know flumps are stone-like creatures, square-like creatures that hung from the ceiling and fall whenever you come near. They try to crush you eventually, and essentially. Well, these flumps lined up in a tight row, dropped repeatedly and randomly with no real trigger or any sense of logic. They would just wait or drop in when they seemed to feel like it. It also seemed like these flumps had been very successful flumps. More cartoony blood. This was getting pretty unusual for the Mario Bros. Franchise, which I hadn't recalled seeing blood in at all. Now, I've seen it used three times. The bloody bills, the messages, and these perpetually smashing and grinding flumps who were working their victims into pump forever. In the hampering effects of the water, I walked slowly under these things, making sure every single one of them touched me and died. There were almost 30 of them in a row. The sight of them mindlessly crushing me over and over again just made me hate them with an unsettling intensity. What's weird is that the blood caused Mario to slide as if he was on a ice level. After walking through that gauntlet of depravity, I swim into a more open area that was filled with spikes on the ceiling and floor. It was difficult to swim in this manner without touching the spikes, but since I was still invincible, I didn't think much of it. I avoided them more for fun than out of any sense I'd be damaged. It stopped being fun really fast though. Now I knew some of what was going on. The bloody mess, the flumps were unendingly spattering. It was other Marios, past Marios that tried to traverse this level first and failed. I had to admit, this was an excellent touch, even if it was a bit ghoulish. Whoever had designed this map actually broke the fourth wall and showed you the bloatedest and motionless abortions of the player's own careless treatment of Mario's tiny life. The bodies only floated straight up and down a tiny bit, as if to show effects of a light current. It was genius, and I couldn't believe I might be the first person and only. I might be the first and only person to ever see this. I toyed with the idea of taking more than one screenshot I just presented to you. Basically, so all of you reading this could enjoy the secret map as much as I had. Especially this weird little touch, but without swimming. Without kicking or moving in any way. The dead Marios started to come at me like torpedoes. Their faces remained blank and blue and dead, but they moved with astonishing speed. They angled and positioned and worked all sorts of unique trajectories that left me almost nowhere to move. They continued coming at me and swarming and backing up to try again, and I just couldn't bring myself to let them touch me. I moved with more speed and skill than I ever exerted, frantically trying to keep Mario free of the drowning victims that seemed dead set on rocketing straight into him. When I finally reached the purple exit pipe you see above, there had to be 10 of those right behind, pinching and turning and chasing me. I entered the pipe as fast as I could. Thankful that worked properly and had Mario out of that situation in a heartbeat. The corridor that followed was empty. Thankfully, it was just a blue underwater hallway of sorts with nothing to avoid or kill. It was boring and predictable like the game had always been for all of these years, which brought back a sense of safety. At the end of the hallway, I came to the standard pier of doors. You'd had to face a boss, the final boss. Beside the doorway, a mushroom power-up. I didn't touch that crap. Going through the door was as you expect. The typical change of the map views occurred. And Mario was standing on the bridge over boiling lava. Or had it been blood all along? When Mario walked onto the bridge, however, there was no boss creature. Instead, Mario immediately looked at the side and froze. I couldn't control him anymore. He just stood there. Keep looking until you see it. Yeah, seriously, keep looking until you see it. I didn't even see at first, so I don't expect you to notice it right away. If you still haven't noticed the thing, look in the third window from the left. FYI, that's not usually there. Mario seemed to regain his composure and looked back and forth slowly, surveying the room. There was still no boss, and I still couldn't control him. So I stopped trying and just watched. This went on and on for what seemed like forever until nothing happened. Then a familiar face walked in from the right. Dressed in green, tall and angry, it was Luigi. Mario recoiled in fear. It's difficult to say that without thinking how crazy it sounded. But Mario really reeled back with a sort of terror that was uncharacteristic for such a peppy, happy-go-lucky mascot like him. Then Luigi spoke.
You thought Koopa worked around?
It was all connected now. The messages scrolled on the walls. I hate you, and why won't you die? Luigi. He's always been Mario's second banana. The player 2, the one who doesn't get the princess in these early games. No matter how identical he is to Mario in skills and ability, and the tenaciousness, bravery, I completely butchered that word. At the end of the day, the game is Super Mario Bros. And he's just the brother. How he must have hated Mario? Who among us wouldn't? Think about it, no matter what happens, Mario always comes back. No matter how many corpses he leaves littering the battlefield. He's always there once more to weep and cheer and get all of the adoration. And Koopa hadn't worked alone. I didn't know what that meant at first, if anything. But again, you just have to think it through. How exactly does King Koopa consistently succeeded in kidnapping the princess? From day one, from the original Mario Bros. Onwards, it had always been an inside job. Still unable to control the player, I watched Mario simply cower in fear as Luigi leapt high into the air, as high as he could in Mario 2, the child of franchise. He jumped on the pathetic weeping Mario again and again and again. I was powerless to stop it. When he was done, he seemed to look at Mario's limp body with this overwhelming rage. Then the bridge started to disappear. Soon Mario would be dead as I looked on. I had an irrational thought. Would it be permanent? Within an instant, as Luigi turned to seemingly strike a victory pose like he beat in the level, Mario awkwardly got to his feet and took him by surprise. Fear and sadness and confusion had given way to anger, and Mario overpowered his fear with little effort. To this day, I'm still haunted by the final result of this wrathful reprisal. There was the map title. None of this was a glitch. None of it was a mistake. It wasn't a developer getting back at Nintendo, and it wasn't a ghost haunting a Nintendo cartridge. It was planned, purposeful, a part of the Mario Bros. Mythos. If you beat in the same level X number of times, a secret part of the world opened, and you learned that from Mario Bros. Through Mario Land, Luigi had secretly been working against you and was in fact in the process of the repeated abduction and abuse of the princess. But why? Power? Money? No, it was all there. Because he couldn't take not being the one in the spotlight, not being Mario himself. After Luigi died, well, and truly died, Mario just sat there at the edge of the bridge and wept. I was forced to watch this on end before the screen faded to black. I played the rest of the game through to see if anything changed. Nothing else odd happened, as one would expect, since this whole ordeal was just supposed to be a part of the actual full story. I couldn't access the whirlpool again. I'd seen the events once, and that was all I was apparently about. It was back to the game as usual. The exact same game I played since the 90s. It would continue, and would probably continue to play for the rest of my days. Well, it was the same, except for the final image.